A lot of stuff has come from this single franchise alone. Games, spin-offs, a series, merch, books, and as a longtime fan, it's always so cool to see and discover something brand new that you never knew about in your years of experience. Just seeing something I never got used to, new or old, is an experience which feels so surreal. But sometimes, when I do discover those new revelations, they're not new. No, they've been trapped somewhere in my mind for years, only being remembered when coming across it again. They scratch that same itch as other discoveries, sure, but it also just really makes me want to wonder, what is this? Why does it exist? And why did I forget about it? Well, it turns out that so-called lost memory is Hello Neighbor Diaries, a product that might only exist out of greed and a ton of ambition, which at this point is a standard for this series. But most importantly, it lies at a time of my life that only in that moment could I appreciate it. But when that time ended, it was left behind to collect dust in my mind. And maybe that was for the better. Welcome back to the Millie's channel, where I talk about the forgotten Hello Neighbor mobile spin-off, Hello Neighbor Nicky's Diaries, releasing on December 6th of 2023 and being developed by D-Magic Games, which was a studio under the belt of TinyBuild. Although the game has over 10 million downloads on the Play Store, it is still by far the most obscure released Hello Neighbor game, mainly since it was exclusive to mobile phones, along with having very little marketing. Now, there haven't been too many videos on this topic, with there being a surprising amount of content to go over. This was also the most requested video by you guys too. I'll most likely make more polls like this, and I'm always open for new ideas for videos. So with all that yapping out of the way, let's finally recover the memory of Nicky's Diaries. Oh yeah, and by the way, I have a Patreon, so you know, that's pretty cool. I mean, you get all these perks and stuff, and I just kind of want your money. So link in description, you know, it's pretty cool. Also, like and subscribe. Oh my god, it's the neighbor. The Hello Neighbor Showcase would premiere on March 27th of 2021, where the series was showing off their upcoming projects along with some goofy cutaways. The event was mainly building up to the AI breakdown of Hello Neighbor 2, with other announcements like Hello Engineer and Secret Neighbor ports to consoles and mobile. Honestly, this was the time to be alive, and revisiting it gives me so much nostalgia for this era. Although, even after the climax that was the AI breakdown, the audience was given a curveball ending, where we were revealed one last thing, a content expansion for Hello Neighbor, specifically for mobile devices. Now at the time, nobody knew what the hell this was, and I would bet that some people still don't know what this game is. Now later, mobile devices would get a graphics overhaul for the original game, which honestly looks really cool. I'd say even better than any other port. However, on August 27th, if you were playing on the iOS version while being in selected regions, you would have access to playtest a brand new mode, Nicky's Diaries. Now, researching this section was extremely difficult, with the fact that a lot of this build has been lost to time, but I'll try my best to document everything. So once you boot up the mode, you would start off with the aftermath of the original game, with Nicky moving back to his childhood room, where he finds a detective board full of memories of his childhood investigations and experiences. So with the help of a good old camera, Nicky goes deep inside of his mind to find out what truly happened to his childhood after all those years. You know, since the base game couldn't even explain that well, the game is structured with a weeks and days system. Each day was basically just another level where you would need to investigate the neighbor's home to eventually unlock your memories through objects and pictures scattered throughout the house. Each week would have a select amount of days, with 4 weeks in total from the looks of it. Day 1 would require you to simply take a yellow key from the neighbor's waist and retrieve it home. Day 2 orders you to take a picture of this camera and put it on the board. Day 3, however, would change up things a little bit, requiring you to find 4 pieces of a picture scattered throughout the neighbor's house, where you piece them back together, revealing a doodle of the guest. What the fuck? This is the first appearance of him outside of Hello Neighbor 2, and the only time he's ever mentioned in any build of Hello Neighbor Diaries. But anyways, week 5 would require you to take this shovel and this metal detector to find this buried box containing an airplane. Take a picture, place it on the board, and you're done. It's clear that at this stage of the What the fuck? It's clear that at this stage of development, this was really just a quick side mode to play while you were getting annoyed and frustrated from the full game. Just quick missions around the same house. And the same goes down on day 5, where you take a picture of a shoe and stuff. Although, interestingly enough, every TV around the house would display a different video of unique paintings and the neighbor for some reason. Now, according to the wiki, these were supposed to have hints for the player, which I guess I could see, but I don't know. This stuff is basically the same as Ancient Ruins at this point. Now, beyond this point, the rest of the DLC is very messy to track and pretty much lost to time. I guess you could say, hello neighbor, lost media, oh my god. But I'll try my best to document everything I could find, because I really want to preserve this for a reason I just don't know. I remember hearing about this game back when it launched, but even though I remember seeing a lot about the build, I don't remember the build itself. But I could gather a few things. For one, it seems that the ending of each week would reward you a new cutscene, with one of those cutscenes beginning in the basement when taking a photo of this hat, showing our character being snuck up on the Aaron cutout, which was actually being used to hide the shadow, then cutting back to adult Nicky. This type of level completion cutscene would eventually be more in line with later builds. I also managed to find another cutscene like this, where in the fake room in the basement, we see Nicky trapped from the point of view of the thing, before cutting back to Nicky with the same cutscene. Now, if I'm gonna be honest, judging by the very early state of this game, these cutscenes were just kind of thrown together. They don't really mean anything. Also, the clues just don't solve anything, about the story. The build doesn't have any special Hello Neighbor lore or anything. It's just kind of a simple demo. They would not want to reveal stuff exclusively to the people of Australia. Although the later builds of this game would aim to retell the first book of the Hello Neighbor novel series, it is unknown if that was the original plan. But if I'm being honest, I'm actually more interested in this approach, mainly because of the thing, rather than just another retelling of the same book. I mean, besides, I'd rather read the book than play the full game. Also, have you noticed this bar? Well, basically, if you were caught a certain amount of times, you would be temporarily timed out of the mode, with the only way to jump right back in being to pay the equivalent of $1 so Nicky could get a coffee. I'm sorry, Tiny Build, no one's gonna pay the equivalent of a fucking $1 to wait like a moment? Really? Wow, I wonder why you almost went bankrupt. Also, the Unreal Engine Air thing was accessible, and colliding with it would send you back to the room and add 1 to your panic meter. That's pretty cool. I also saw a discussion that once you beat the game, you would get a skin in Secret Neighbor. However, I couldn't actually find out what the skin was, because no one actually shared what the skin was. Moving on. Now we also get to see more of this game thanks to some leaks that came out. For starters, thanks to Kokos, I've never known how to pronounce the name, we could see a scrapped animation of the neighbor getting shit from Amazon. And also thanks to another leaker, we could see both new models exclusively for the content expansion, along with each photograph, and early concepts of future mechanics. But that's really all we know from the ancient ruins left behind, especially with the fact that this planned DLC game mode was scrapped, and the idea would eventually be turned into its own game. But honestly, I really think this initial idea was really cool, especially as a break from the full game. I like the vibe of doing quick missions to hopefully find out some cool secrets about the story. Now, although the house stayed the same, it worked with the simple tasks you were ordered to do. And I know what they eventually made is technically bigger and grander in scale in literally every department, but that still doesn't mean it's better. I mean, okay, this DLC didn't look very good, but I still loved looking back on this old footage and even seeing some new stuff like those leaks. I also just get so much nostalgia from both the time period and Hello Neighbor Mobile in general, but sadly, we have to move on. Whoa, wait, okay. Before we move on, I have to show you this video called Hello Neighbor, Nicky's Diaries bonus, Nicky Greater. What the hell is Nicky Greater? So this seems to be the first day of not week 1. For starters, it's nighttime, which is new, and also the player just runs around the entire time. The only important thing he does is find this number, which I presume is part of the code, but the person playing it just chucks it at the window and it ends abruptly. So alright, time to move on. It seems that the content expansion was a massive hit in Australia, so TinyBuild goes big and starts to tease what the DLC has begun to evolve into. When this teaser released, a good amount of people thought it was a remake of the original Hello Neighbor, but they would later be disproven. Soon enough, it would be announced that a mobile exclusive game would start early access in certain countries, aka Nicky's Diaries, or as it was now known as Hello Neighbor Diaries, which was released on June 22nd of 2022. A very interesting and concerning time for the franchise. The Hello Neighbor 2 beta was recently released, which only showed a clear shift in direction. This was also around the time that the Hello Neighbor Sucks videos started coming out. Although better stuff would come out later that year, this game was still released at a very poor time, a time that I personally didn't like. However, one major thing to point out is that for the most part, this game wasn't made by the usual Eerie Guest Studios. Instead, Magic Games was in charge. They were previously working with TinyBuild for the past years on games like Deadslide and Hello Neighbor 2, and for like $1 million, TinyBuild acquired them instead of acquired. Basically, TinyBuild was only interested in their employees. Now, thankfully for the employees who lived in Ukraine and Russia, they were quickly relocated and supported after this transaction. So that's pretty cool, dude. Although, there is still some mysteries about them. For one, I cannot for the life of me find any other prior games that they made, even though they are listed as a mobile game developer. Also, it is unclear if they were in charge of the original Hello Neighbor DLC, but even if they weren't, they are now. Or were now, you know, I'll get to that later. Now, I never got the chance to play this version myself, but I think a few videos could teach us what this game is all about. And 3 hours? 3 hours? I mean, compared to the 1 hour runtime of the full release, this version should have so much content that is purely filled with anything but terrible and time-consuming game design. Now, since I'm gonna cover the full game later on, I'm not gonna go fully in depth, especially with the mechanics and features present in both versions, but that doesn't mean there's still some weird stuff here. So once you boot up the game and enter your age for some odd reason, we kick it off with a cutscene with Nicky entering his childhood home as he finds a box containing forgotten memories. So it's up to you to discover what truly happened to his friend. You were then put in a tutorial, with currently the only thing out for you being the unnecessary amount of prompts. Our AI-driven Mr. Peterson is currently occupied, allowing you to get the key and enter the basement. And so a fun thing to mention about these cutscenes is that they don't have music or sound effects. Like the one I'm about to show you only has the sound of a humming fridge, and also the terrible animation. I'll just show you. By the way, that was completely raw footage. I did not edit any of that. So with one added to your panic meter, you now have access to really everything. Your house, the gadgets, and a camera to document the journey through your mind. So it's time to introduce the main gameplay and how the levels are structured. The game is now split into 4 seasons with 5 missions each, where you are required to take a picture of important objects from Nicky's childhood. Some of them require you to unlock the rooms that they are stashed in, while others are photographed that you need to piece back together, a mechanic which surprisingly never returned. And once you do this objective, a small cutscene would play, showing a small part of Nicky's backstory. Each week has 6 levels, and the second last mission of each week, you are tasked with getting parts of the code for the basement door, allowing you to enter the basement and take a photo. Where the following level would feature a sort of boss level, where you maneuver through the basement. Now each house has the same base, but in every level it will expand with new rooms and environments. As for the mechanics, many of the objects and tools return from the series. Crowbars can break off boards and effectively break windows. Keys can unlock shit. Wrenches can unlock shit too, but only the ones that are screwed shut. Metal detectors can be used to locate buried treasure to be uncovered with the help of a shovel. And there is also the return of the decoy paintings, which unlock certain areas when interacted with. This is also only featured in this version, which I'm honestly not surprised by. That was kind of like the dumbest puzzle in the first game. Now, one thing I've not talked about yet are the gadgets. Now, I would talk about them now, but I don't really feel like it, so honestly you're just gonna have to wait until I get to it in the full release section, mainly just because it's a big aspect of the game. But besides that, you could search through drawers and cabinets, along with picking up miscellaneous items, and hiding in wardrobes when the neighbor appears. Oh yeah, the neighbor! He's in this game, I forgot. So, what can I say about him? He's just annoying. He doesn't learn from your every move, he doesn't cut you off or anything cool. He just slowly chases you. He can be alerted by many different things, mainly being spotted as he patrols, although his main gimmick is the new gadgets and traps of his own, which he puts around the house. Cameras detect these conveniently shined areas and will constantly change their view. These laser detectors go up and down. Well, not fully up, just a little bit. What? These are the two main traps that can be shut down with the use of the power box. And also, exclusively to this version, pressure plates would be scattered along the house, either by the neighbor or naturally. Now, interacting with any of these at all will trigger the current room to go into lockdown, with many if not all escapes being closed off, and an elevator door counting down will appear on the nearest blank wall. Once the floor hits the neighbor icon, the man himself will appear and quickly patrol around the area. One important thing to mention before moving on are these white sketches. These footprints allow you to walk on the wall and into a secret area, allowing you to get a bonus cutscene. However, after playing the full game, it's definitely intended for you to only be able to walk on the walls once you beat the game. However, in this version, you could just do this whenever, but along with the footprints, the rest of the two sketches go unused, that being the doors and hatches. They almost always lead to passages that aren't accessible in the level you're in, but will revert to regular doors and but will revert to regular doors and such that use them to access new areas. However, on the flip side, you have the 4 basement levels, which take place in the basements. This is where the developers show off their cool new skills, as a lot of these doors basically act as portals, leading to different areas. There's also some vent crawls and gates too, but for the most part, these areas are really just linear stealth missions. The only enemy here is the shadow neighbor guy, who I think is a stand-in for the Thing, as for some reason, he's just not in this game anymore. Even though he was one of the main mysteries people couldn't figure out when the game launched. What? He wanders on a set path with the occasional look around. However, if he spots you, he will quickly hunt you down, as he is much faster than you. Also, I think it's pretty funny that he has these pretty cool mumbles which are completely new, but also keeps the stock sound effect shocked voice. Now the stress bar returns once again, where you would have to watch an ad or pay $1 to continue once it fills up. Although interestingly enough, some levels feature a timer instead, which gradually counts down. And if the time hits 0, I guess the same thing happens as usual. Alright, so sorry for the bad quality mic. I'm recording this while editing. So I forgot to mention some other, unused mechanics, like the glasses that make you see some cool stuff, the key card, and some other stuff I found while editing. It's on screen, its use is kind of indicated. Sorry for not having okay. And that's really the bare bones explanation of both of these full releases, but we still have a few things to mention before we get to the final release. The test build was met with mediocre fanfare at best, and just by looking at the gameplay, it was clear that the game was annoyingly difficult, but D-Magic Games prevailed and spent another year perfecting their game. This is noticeable as a lot of the levels, especially the later ones, would be basically overhauled from the ground up, along with the removal of plenty mechanics. So later on November 10th of 2023, TinyBuild would announce that the game would return for its full release, with some noticeable differences already, especially with the new key art, and the brand new name, Hello Neighbor, Nicky's Diaries. Although the trailer that would release that same day would literally be reused from the test build, with a lot of its gameplay not even showing up in the full game, we would still get a good amount of community posts and trailers of the final build. Eventually, the game would finally launch on December 6th to, nothing. Nobody cared about this game. Now, despite what Google Play tells you, no one really talks about this game. The only somewhat in-depth review I found was from the blue guy in this video, and even then, it's really just a review rather than a full breakdown. As for myself, I remember trying out the game, even buying the full thing, then just dropping it after the first set of missions. But I guess it's time to finally uncover both Nicky and our forgotten memories. When booting up for the first time, we are given a quick guide on basic movement and interactions, letting us enter our childhood home and remembering the mystery of our forgotten friend. Then we are given a new cutscene with the neighbor setting up a camera. and the game finally begins. Big red arrows help guide us walk down the street and into another cutscene, where we are clearly indicated that we need to turn off this power box, and at this point I think just explaining everything that happens is gonna get really f***ing boring. So you know what, let's just start by discussing the presentation. The game looks very similar to Hello Neighbor VR, with its bright and mixed art style, so take that as you will. I will at least say that it's improved since the beta version, with better lighting and higher quality in just about everything, including this tutorial, which is so much better, with better polished cutscenes and effectively guiding the player so that they aren't lost, while not being too boring. The UI and basically everything has improved by now, even though sometimes it could get buggy, but you know, we'll get to that later. The soundtrack is also amazing, being once again composed by Sahil Malashona, who in the past few years has become the main composer for the series. The sound effects are fine too, I guess. They're kind of mostly reused though. Anyways, we're given 2 levels on how most mechanics work, like the x-ray goggles, keys, crowbars, codes and such. Just the basics for the first 6 levels. Then when that's all done, you're immediately interrupted with an ad for the game that you're currently playing. Like, it's just an ad for Hello Neighbor Nicky's Diaries. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, if only they showed this ad anywhere else online, rather than the game you're already playing. And then you are met with the new dreaded way for monetization. You might have noticed that the panic meter is gone. For good. Instead, you now need to pay $7 for the full game. That is stupid. Well over 90% of mobile players will never spend even a single dollar on a game, let alone $7. Like, you couldn't just put an ad for every time you die? That at least would not turn off like everyone who was playing your game up to this point. Shit is bubonic. So after giving up $7, you now have access to the full game. So let's analyze this, frame by frame. So the game is structured the same as usual, except not really. Everyone says that this game has 4 seasons with 5 missions, but my version states that it only has 1 season with 20 missions in total, even though the menu is split up into 4? I don't know if every copy of Hello Neighbor Diaries is personalized or something, but I think it was intentional for something we'll get to later. Alright, so every week has 5 missions. So let's start with week 1, which is really just one big tutorial section. But before we can get to that, let me just say how I played this game, because it is pretty important to the overall experience and the footage you are seeing. The following footage was recorded on a base iPhone 15. Now for the first couple missions, I was just using the standard touch controls, which honestly are just standard. So sorry for the interruption, but as I'm editing, I just found out that like 3/4 of my recording just completely vanished. And I can't get it back because I deleted the recording on my phone and some of it didn't save properly to Google Drive. So I'm just gonna use this tutorial to show some footage, but my point still stands for the things I mentioned. They get the job done, sure, but they can be really inconvenient in quick situations. But to prevent any annoyances of both this flopping around the screen and my general gameplay, I use a PS5 controller. And in all honesty, it's so much more comfortable and works. That's all my positives though. For one, none of the settings UI work with the controller. I need to click out twice to leave for some odd reason. And the inventory is just straight up broken, with some arrows equating to random slots, while others not even having any button mapping. But if you get past it, it's perfectly fine. Alright, we can finally get to the actual games. Sorry that took so long. Alright, so every day you start off in a room, which contains an objective board to help guide you, along with the gadget table, which we'll get to in a bit. Across the street is the neighbor's house, with a good amount of entrances, exits, and rooms to explore. Although as the week continues, it will only grow more and more, with different houses and rooms added on top. However, the levels suffer from the original game's problem, where the first base level doesn't really matter at all, especially the kitchen and bathroom, which is a shame because they honestly have really good environments. As for the neighbor himself, he will initially be a non-threat, but will soon start patrolling his house as usual. Along with all the other mechanics, the first 3 days are pretty generic, with the 4th day requiring the numbers to the code for the basement door, where you can get your photo. Then the following mission, which is always the last day of the week, you are trapped in the basement itself, where you, yeah, I already described this in my last segment, but you could play around with these gates. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so besides the fact that every mechanic is featured so far, the layouts and level design are completely different. So once you complete these missions, you are rewarded with a cutscene as usual, but now with the introduction of text. But what do these cutscenes actually mean? Well, you see, the game has the goal of retelling the original novel trilogy, with this season tackling the first book, Missing Pieces. Each photograph triggers a small little animatic thing that is ripped straight from the pages of the book, along with, as mentioned, brand new text to further illustrate each scenario. In the first cutscene, we kick it off with Nicky moving into Ravenbrooks and communicating with the kid across the street at night. The two then become friends, and both have interest in engineering, with the two repairing an old car. Although at the center, Nicky meets another kid, Enzo, who warns him about Aaron for some suspicious reason. But the two would still remain friends, as Nicky would often be given messages in the form of notes, which are always taped to his trellis. Although one day, Nicky forgot his power drill at Aaron's house, but when he goes back, he finds that someone beyond the basement door is using it, and the basement door itself has black, greasy handprints, along with scratches. Ruh-roh! And that's all for the lore so far this week. And on the topic of the book story, I promised the video is still coming out. Like, I was just really unprepared for how big that video would be, so sorry, I'm planning on, like, doing that over the summer. Forgive me. Now, one funny thing to mention about these is that the music that plays doesn't loop, so if the animatic takes too long, it will just leave you in silence. Also, interestingly enough, some levels have secret clues, which don't give you anything, they just kind of exist. What? But once the level is fully completed, you are given a generic winner screen, with 3 different stars granting you different rewards, kinda like the shit from Angry Birds. These stars often require you to break boards, disarm traps, and be chased by the neighbor, with each one granting you a new reward like cogs and gadgets, which is a totally perfect segue into week 2. Beyond this point, things change. For starters, the neighbor is fully active, and he no longer sleeps through each mission, along with being somewhat of a threat, as he can traverse through his house surprisingly well, along with the return of the vacuum cleaner, which is as annoying as ever. Your house is fully accessible, which is entirely remade from the ground up, and honestly, I really like it. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't fully one-to-one recreate the house from the books, as there is no trellis nor a cramped study room that Nicky's dad had, but it's still a very big improvement. But alright, let's finally focus on the gadgets, which from now on will be the main mechanics. Each and every one can be obtained in the player's room, with 4 of them in total. The first is a bomb, a shock grenade that when thrown will disarm all surrounding traps for the time being. Honestly, this might be the most useful and broken one yet, as it can effectively skip a good amount of the gameplay. Although I didn't use it too much, since I wanted to play the game as intended, totally, you know, it wasn't like I forgot it existed, which could've saved me a ton of time. Next are the jump boosts, which kick ass. The ability is in the name, it's just really convenient, especially when on the roof. I'm just too lazy to go the slightly longer path. Glue. I never used this, which really backfired on me. You basically throw glue at the neighbor and he's stunned for a good amount of time. Although I never really used it, since the neighbor himself is not that bad of a threat. Oh yeah, the neighbors in this game, I forgot. But I don't care. X-ray goggles. They're also in this game, as they show you the location of key items around the house. Honestly, really useful. However, these gadgets are not free, as there are a couple ways you could get these, with one being a star reward. They can also be found in item boxes, which give you a random gadget, but the most prominent way to get them is to craft your own with cogs, which are given as bonus rewards, daily rewards, along with being scattered throughout each level, with a sound that I love. Oh my god, it's so sad. Oh, I love it. They can be used to buy certain gadgets in bulk, which honestly makes for a fine currency. Now, interestingly enough, the test build allowed you to pay real money for extra cogs, which, if you did this low-key, you're kinda stupid. So we finally have that out of the way. So let's move on. At this point, the metal detector and shovel will always be in your room when you start each mission. However, they are both the only tools that spawn in your house, even when they're not needed, which honestly confused me for a good while. But the levels are still straightforward, with these big red arrows to help guide you. And we are given a new key item, that being the valve, which is a valve, like the This week's levels have a massive incentive on digging up some buried items as the house begins to grow more and more. And honestly, it's pretty fun to explore so far, although the traps can be really annoying at points. Especially these lasers, as when I first encountered them, I thought you could just crouch under them, but no! Like, you could do this in the beta version, but not this one? TSPMO. The same mission order is present with 3 generic levels, then a level where you need to find the codes, and finally a basement level, with this one featuring much more claustrophobic environments to sneak around, along with a great amount of locks and doors and shit. That's kinda all I have to say so far. Oh yeah, the story. Aaron shows Nicky the Golden Apple Factory, where they spend their time hanging out as they basically turn it into a man cave. However, on his walk back, Nicky notices an abandoned theme park in the woods, with Aaron getting really weird when the two encounter it. So Nicky decides to go to the local library for more information, where he finds out that a girl named Lucy Yee died in that very theme park. Although he is interrupted by his mom and goddamn, like, do you guys even have to hear me out? I'm cracking Nicky's mom. So far, the story has some noticeable changes in its order of events, how they play out, and adding some more facts. But if you want to know how much it differs from the books, then you're gonna need to like and subscribe for my books video, although you might need to wait a while, so, or, you know, you could just read the book. Okay, week 3. Alright, this is where shit gets real. Mainly with the fact that the arrows are gone! From now on, you'll just be doing what you've been doing, but just at more massive scales. And for someone who had 2 consecutive hour-long playthroughs back to back, it got a little bit repetitive. And I mean like really repetitive. Now, the later weeks' houses were honestly pretty fun, until they got convoluted. This game is not meant to be played in one sitting, which is why it's on mobile. Like, if this was on PC or console, I would be nowhere as lenient, but since it's on mobile, I honestly think the gameplay loop is pretty alright. It's meant to be played here and there when you're waiting on the bus, or just when you have some free time during your 9 to 5 job. Obviously had to include the trigger warning. Now, I will say that each level does take way more dedication than something like Cut the Rope, but this gameplay is fine for the hardware it's being played on. But anyways, you do your basic levels, you get the code, and finally, your basement level, which takes like 10 minutes. Like, it's honestly pretty stressful, as you have to sneak really close to these guys. Although, it's important to mention that, once you're caught, you have to restart the level all over again, which is fine at first, but once the houses start getting diabolical, it becomes really annoying, especially for the basement level this time around. Honestly, I think it's a bit too stressful for a game like this, especially when nearing the end of a level, and especially for the upcoming levels. But if you're able to get past all that, then you could uncover even more of this story. So the kids have been using their engineering skills for the absolute worst, as they've been pulling pranks on the town. Simple stuff like putting creepy voices in one of the dolls and launching actual dog shit onto one of their neighbors. In one of their misadventures, they get some overpriced survival bars from the natural grocer. However, the bars end up pyrocynical. Alright, I'm uncomfortable. Well, at least there's only one more cutscene in this week. Like, there's still a good chance I can improve. God damn, it's the same cutscene. So, even after playing the level, I still get this cutscene, the same one. But by playing the cutscene differently with the menu, we can find out what we truly missed on. And oh my god, pyrocynical, leave, please. So the kids, make an audio synthesizer to play, yeah, and they're going to prank the store owner, Miss Tillman, for being an asshole. But that night, Nicky finds out that Aaron was somewhat glad that Lucy died, since it meant that his dad's career was over. So, also the text was broken, which is pretty weird. Look, man, I promise the rest of this series doesn't have this fetish content and shit. Like, deadass, yeah, let's just move on to the final week. Alright, the final week. This is where stuff ends. The levels are absolutely insane this time. Like, if it wasn't for me playing this all at once, it could be pretty fun, occasionally hopping onto this. However, this is where most of the flaws step in. Like the annoying AI, the sometimes confusing layout and direction, and the fact that getting caught leads to a total reset, along with items spawning in different locations. Especially for the last 2 house levels, that completely discombobulated my brain and thoughts. But if you manage to pursue, you can make it to the final mission. And this one is really something. Right from the get-go, you grab these cool Jordans, which trigger a special cutscene, as we find out that Nicky is the wandering type, something his grandma warned him about. After it ends, we are rewarded with our first ability, which is also the only ability in the game. You are now able to walk onto walls that have a footprint trail, and thus we endure the final level. And it is so incredibly long and difficult, so many close calls, puzzles, and so many instances where I have to risk my run to make it to the single ladder. I'll get into it later, but eventually I managed to beat it. And now, we can fully uncover Nicky's past. So in another of their misadventures, they sneak into the llama farm where they barely steal one of the signs. However, they would just have to one-up themselves in what would become their last adventure. Turns out that they would eventually use the synthesizer on Miss Tillman, but it backfires on them and messes up her speakers, leading them into massive trouble, especially Aaron. After a good moment without communication, our protagonist is signaled to go to the abandoned amusement park, where he ends up finding Aaron's sister, Maya. She tries to say how Mr. Peterson is getting worse, but gets frustrated when Nicky doesn't understand her. Eventually, this would all take a toll, as Diane Peterson, Aaron and Maya's mom, would unfortunately die in a car accident. Mr. Peterson is clearly not handling it well, as he is completely distraught, and Aaron is really quiet, along with the fact that Maya is missing. Our protagonist is then ordered to leave, and to never return. And to end off this story, the final cutscene, God damn it, it's the same thing! So we have to put the ending on hold. Sorry. Although there are still more cutscenes out there. Since we got those shoes, we are now able to use them in any level, which is cool in theory, but only a couple levels allow you to do this, and it's used only one time. And on top of that, the game tells you which levels features it, rather than you scavenging, but they still offer additional animatics, mainly of the Golden Apple amusement park. Mr. Peterson, who is Aaron's dad, built the theme park and was considered to be a genius and celebrity amongst engineers. And also, if you didn't know, this is where I got my profile picture. I just thought it was a cool drawing, and then I made it my profile, and then I kind of redid it a bit, but you know, some cool trivia. Anyways, the Golden Apple Corporation approached him to make a theme park to capitalize off their brand. However, he was given a tight deadline, and the man was not doing the best when creating the theme park. And the fact that Mr. Peterson halted safety tests and removed safety features in favor of more thrill led to the devastating tragedy. But anyways, it's now finally time to find out what happened to Aaron. If I had the cutscene! Now I found out that if you replay the level once again, the real cutscene can play, finally ending my torment. And you know, I've already beat this game once, so how bad could it be, you know? So it should be light work, you know? It shouldn't be bad. The fact that I was growing so impatient, and the fact that I was gradually getting so irritated, made this single level take forever. I am so sad that I didn't record any of my audio because I was saying some diabolical stuff. This level is worse than Fear School. It solely relies on waiting, high risk, and luck. You see, the basic loop of this and other basement levels is to enter a room on the second floor, sneak past the neighbor guys on the first floor, find your item or passage you were looking for, and book it out of there. But there are so many problems, like the AI spotting you from really inconvenient places, and especially having nowhere to hide as the neighbor sees you. And even worse is being trapped in a room, ending your run, specifically this one. Then there's the problem of the AI sometimes seeing you even when you're on the second level, completely ruining your sight and planning. And then the moment which happens in every room when you get what you need, and all that's left is to go back. But the level design is so open that the AI can easily spot you, causing you to risk your entire run just to escape. And a lot of the time, you aren't lucky enough to make it. And once you're caught, you have to do it all over again. You have to pick up the shoes, you have to watch the cutscene, you have to retrace your steps, everything, including the stress. It never gets easier. I'd argue it gets more difficult and harder to a point where you can't take it anymore. I cannot imagine doing this on touchscreen because this section is so stressful. I hope these ladders and lousy boxes jump off a bridge and f***ing themselves along with these f***ass Mexican Jordans. I hate it, it f***ing sucks. This stupid ass art with this pyrocynical fetish, this level of design, this shit is complete ass, along with these visuals, god why is it so bland? And the fucking neighbor too, all shadowy fucking himself too, trying to overfarm. Well, guess what? You're not playing Ray Cardi, trying to be all mysterious and shit. I hate you people. I hate the shadow people. Alex, you made me race. After a good while of silence, Nicky tries to communicate with Aaron, but he hasn't had luck. However, later that night, he does respond with a note saying, "I make bad things happen," with a trail being made of his broken window, blood, and handprint. And fun fact, if you're playing the beta build, you would see this cutscene in the second to last mission, along with an unused image saying "I attract evil," where the final mission's cutscenes would be the Jordan's one. And that's it. It's all done. And now that I'm actually thinking rationally, I just realized I spent multiple hours for nothing. Especially the hour that it took me to complete that final level. First off, I didn't even use any gadgets, which would have helped me greatly. For example, the glue. Why the f did I not use this? Secondly, I could have skipped all of this if I just used the replay cutscene prompt to skip it all. Or better yet, watch a YouTube video. But no matter if I saw it or not, I knew it would have happened because I already read the book it was based on, and the only thing I gained from this was seeing how much the story fucking blows compared to what it's adapting, removing all the character building and intrigues and replacing it with these fuck-ass drawings. And that's it. That's all of Hello Neighbor Diaries. But it wasn't supposed to be. Looking at the missions board, even when everything was completed, there's still a couple locked options. This is because D Magic wanted to adapt the rest of the novels, mainly the Nicky trilogy. However, after its launch, the game would only receive a couple of updates before being abandoned. The app as it stands is clearly having issues running on new software. For example, some of the text is completely broken, along with incorrect cutscenes playing. The UI is slowly starting to break, and after recently playing, I found out that the second to last level had its lighting completely broken. This game is just no longer talked about. However, there is a reason. You see, TinyBuild was in a terrible situation when this game launched, like to a point where they were on the verge of bankruptcy. The only reason they exist today was because of a quick support from Atari, but even then, things had to change, and they needed to let some people go. Those people being of D Magic Games. Although the supposed poor sales of the game didn't help them at all, it is in my opinion, TinyBuild's financial struggles that took the studio down. It's unknown what happened afterwards for both the studio and its employees, as I can only hope for the best. But then, what became of it? You can still download Nicky's Diaries exclusively on mobile, but I don't think it's worth it. Look, it's a fine game when you have the time to play it, but nothing about this game makes me want to go out and play it. Want to play Hello Neighbor with watered down slice of life levels? Then you're better off playing the dozens of fan games and mods. Want to uncover the story? Well, you're better off reading the books, which tell you so much more, while being that much more engaging. This game is so mixed. Like, it's not the pinnacle of absolutely selling out, because that goes to Hello Engineer. But like, it doesn't have a great story, because the story itself is stolen from a better product. It is absolutely pointless, left to rot in the back of your mind and just fade into obscurity. Something so mediocre and pointless that it doesn't deserve any other label, other than being a forgotten memory. If you've watched this video, then I don't feel that there's any need to visit this title, unless you want some more Hello Neighbor content, which is understandable. But if you have any additional facts about this game that you would like to share, well, share it in the comments. I aim to make every video that covers a game to be its definitive video, with every piece of information currently available. So I'm glad that this exists, so that if any more of this game is lost, it will at least be archived in this video, so that nothing can be left behind for him.